I guess 7 o'clock, so let's get this party started. Thank you for joining us for the October Longmont Amateur Radio Club general meeting. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Really quick, I'll do a couple announcements. A couple weeks ago was the conference up in Wyoming, Cheyenne. A lot of LARC members showed up for that, so thank you for that. I think I counted something like almost 10 of us that showed up, so thank you. It was a good time. Lots of great forums, chance to meet ARL elected officials. Rick, the president, was there, and very powerful speech at dinner he did on Saturday night. Very heartwarming. He did, talk about some of the challenges of ARL, and so some of those I will be addressing probably after the first year for our club as well, since we're affiliated, and see how we can help with some of those challenges. We do have Dick, you got enough people for the parade, for the Halloween parade?
No.
Well, you better speak up.
I need one or possibly two operators. I haven't heard back from the city. I sent her an email 3 or 4 days ago, and she only answered half of the questions. So the one that I need to know, I'm gonna have to call her again, I guess, and ask her. So, but I'll get that done. Then I'll know whether I need a 7th or not. Otherwise, we'll just do it with 6.
Okay. And what day and time is that again?
29th. And it's from 10 a.m. till, I don't know, probably noon. It is a walking thing. There are no floats or anything, and they're going to walk down Main Street on one side and walk up the other side.
Okay, cool.
So 10 blocks and they're done.
That works. So if you're interested and you want to help Dick, please contact him and let him know so I can help with that. What about the turkey trot? Are we got on schedule for that one as well in November? Or? Yeah,
but she's going to get back to me on that. She didn't have all of the information at this time, and she didn't indicate how long, but it's probably going to be a couple of weeks at least before I get info on that. Christmas party on the 14th. It'll be $11. I've got about 30 signed up now, and I would like to see 75 people. And start time is probably going to be 6:30, giving everybody a chance to get off work and get over to Niwot at the Grange. I have to firm that up with the Grange yet, however, but last I knew she had that time available. I asked her to pencil us in at that time, and so I just got to get a hold of her, and I'd lost all her information as usual, but I got it back from Doug, so I'll get that taken care of here. Probably Monday. Tomorrow and Friday I'm tied up. So I got 2 parties on Saturday, and it's driving me a little nuts. So, but that looks good for that. And Don is going to run the Parade of Lights in December, and so he and I'll get together at some point down the road and kind of figure out what all we need for that and how many people. I think probably around 10. And that's going to be starting at 5 in the evening. I'm assuming it must be a Saturday, but I'm not certain of that at this point.
Usually is.
Okay.
Usually is.
There's one in Denver, it runs Friday and Saturday. They broadcast it live on Friday, and then a Saturday they broadcast it again, but it's Friday's parade. And so they don't make any changes, but they actually have a parade on Saturday as well. So cool. 2 nights. That's how they've done it for many years, and that one, 30 people. So, but I'm not involved in that anymore, thankfully. Not enough to do.
All right.
Got the winter field day. I'm starting to plan that. And looking for places to go. Does anybody know if the city has finished the park where we went last year? Or did we go there last year?
Isaac Walton?
Oh, no,
I don't think we did, because I don't think it was open last year.
we did field day there 2 years ago.
Okay.
And that's where I thought we had it, but I don't know for sure. Somebody that knows needs to help me out there.
I don't remember for sure, so.
2 years ago was Isaac Walton for field day.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
that's the park with the little lake right there beside it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it runs next to the St.
Building.
Vrain.
Okay,
Like,
Is that in a bit of a hole?
no,
Isaac Walton?
not any worse than the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty nice building. I mean, the biggest challenge is getting antenna cables because you got to go out the windows.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you know, it's secure and theoretically warm.
That's the biggest thing, it's warm.
Well, it ought to be better because conditions are, right now, they're fabulous and they're predicting them to be even better in the next couple of months.
Cool.
So looking forward to having a great winter field day this year. And then another one for regular field day next. That should be terrific.
All right, well, thank you. Anything else, sir,
I
Dick?
will get notes out or be on the Thursday night net, at least this week and next, and maybe have some more information by next week. I'll try to have all that wrapped up.
Okay. All right, do I have any board members that have anything they'd like to bring up?
I don't have anything, Chuck.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on, Don. We hear you.
I'd like to remind any members that if they want to renew their membership, if they do it with PayPal, it costs us $1.19. However, if you send us a check, it doesn't cost us anything. It costs you 50, 60 cents, but it's just one thing doing business.
Thank you, Don. Pat, Mike, Jerry?
Nothing for me.
okay.
I don't have
Steve?
anything, Chuck.
Steve, you got anything? K0STE?
Nope, nothing for membership.
Okay, as a reminder, elections will be next month. Everybody will be receiving an email with a link. I don't think we sent it out yet. Per the bylaws, we can do a proxy. If you're unable to attend, or you know somebody that's unable to attend, you can bring their proxy in for them for the vote. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be coming for next month because we want to make sure we get it done in 1 month and not have to wait. As of right now, your current board is the only ones I know of that's running again. If somebody would like to run for position, you know, by all means, let us know. We'll throw you on the ballots as well. But, you know, like most clubs, I think we're probably stuck, but we don't mind competition either. So please let us know. See if there's anything else really quick. Oh, Santa on the Air is going to happen again this year. It will be starting November 27th through December 9th. We're actually doing 2 weeks this year. And we're doing it with a partner this year. Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club is going to jump in and help us as well. So Mark will be getting you involved with those discussions along with those folks up there, how we can link the repeaters and things like that. But we have at least one Santa. If somebody would like to play Santa and volunteer, let us know. We got some slots available, or regular Santa can't do it. Or if you'd like to be an elf and help Santa Claus out, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Just let me know, and hopefully we'll get some publicity like we did the last couple of years. I sent the link to everybody in the club. That Channel 9, I didn't know it was on YouTube, which was cool, and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I don't think if
Give me
there's
those
anybody else.
dates
Go ahead.
again.
I'm sorry,
Will you give me those 2 dates again? November
for
20?
Santa.
Yeah,
It's November 27th through December 9th.
okay, thank you.
And there's the Sundays are from 5 to 7. The weekdays are I think it's 5:30 to 7. I'll have to look at times again. Or 6 to 7:30. I think it's 6 to 7:30. So that should be a lot of fun. We have had one other quick thing. We do have, I sent out an email looking for some help collecting equipment from a silent key. That basically a lot of it is stuff that Brian thinks it could be very useful for education, because they don't mind donating for education. But they also had a lot of tubes and stuff like that, vacuum tubes. So if you need some of that stuff, I can help you find it possibly. Because this gentleman had all kinds of stuff. Not a member of our club that I can find, but the family contacted us, and we're going to help them any way we can. I do know they have a 65-foot tower in their backyard too. So if anybody's interested in that, they'll be more than happy to probably talk to you about that as well, if you'd like something like that. Nobody's got anything else. Without further ado, Raman, KV0N, is our presenter this evening, and most people know him. So the floor is yours, sir. I will be quiet now. Did we lose you? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Raman. There you go.
Probably better that I was muted, honestly. Mark's already heard this, so I don't know why he's coming back for more. I'll try to talk slower tonight, because I was talking 100 miles an hour last night. So, hey guys, I'm Raman Sinha, amateur radio call sign KV0N. Today we're going to be talking about using the incident command system for events. If you don't know what ICS is, then don't worry, we'll be talking about that too. We have a lot to go through, so please save your questions till the end. I talk so much, as you know, that I might just answer your questions as we go. And I think the video and probably the slides will be available after the talk. So you don't need to take notes, at least on the slides. The slides will be at least up on my website. All right, so more specifically, we're going to talk about challenges that some of my clubs and its member volunteers may have faced before and during participation in an event where we offered communications assistance. We'll talk about the importance of written documentation in helping to overcome some of those challenges. We'll talk about what is the Incident Command System, or ICS for short, forms that are used in ICS, scope to those that we would use in a typical event, like a parade or athletic event, as Dick was just talking about earlier. We'll also talk about an event that I helped with where we used ICS versus packet radio, ICS forms in Winlink Express or RMS Express. We'll try to do some screenshots of a demo of an ICS form, filling out an ICS form using Winlink. And I've got Winlink running here on my little laptop. So if you have Winlink running, send a message to Kilo Victor 0 November if you want, and I'll make you famous in the video. So, but first, who am I? I became licensed during COVID in early August 2020. And over 3 months, I earned my amateur extra. Of course, that's no code, but I'm actively learning CW. I'm a member of this club, the Longmont Amateur Radio Club, the Indian Peaks Radio Club in Nederland, Colorado, which is one of our big little brother, little sister clubs, Boulder County Aries. And I'm trying to get into some of the technical aspects at Rocky Mountain Ham Radio, if they will let me. It's true, I'm a retired podiatric surgeon. These days, I'm the director of engineering at GLUE in downtown Boulder. Some of my favorite things are making and experimenting with antennas, where I love to abuse electrons. I'm generally involved in creating media with my ham clubs. As you know, I post a lot of videos on the W0ENO website, YouTube videos, web stuff, photography. And like any good software engineer, I've got a bunch of side projects going where I'm writing software for ham radio. I love photos, so we'll just talk about some of these photos here in my PowerPoint. On the left here is my Subaru Outback. It has a Tram 5-inch mag mount CB antenna, and that is my super antenna on top of it. This was a few days ago when I did maybe 3 or 4 POTUS in one day last Sunday. On the upper right is the venerable RTL SDR. This is what got me into ham radio. I started out with an RTL SDR and I was like, wait a minute, I can hear people talking. I want to get in on this. And then in the lower right is a 49-to-1 that I probably wound a few years ago. So I've never coordinated an event from the ham radio club's perspective, but it does seem like it takes a lot of time. Dick sure spends a lot of time doing it. So these are my experiences from a volunteer standpoint. So some of the events that I've volunteered at to assist with ham radio communications include a local parade, the same parade, but coordinated by a different member of the club, which is very interesting because you have 2 guys that kind of do it 2 different ways. A running event, I think it was a 10K with some shorter distances also. A bike race, a simulated emergency test, a set with my local Aries group, Bee Cares, a whitewater race, and a few other events. Most every time when it got near an event, it would be announced on the net and a call for volunteers by the ham radio coordinator at our club would go out. This is a great new event for new hams that want to participate in your first event, we would hear. Then there would be the emails. What day is it again? What time? Where? What does the course look like? I thought it was on Sunday. It's been on Sunday for 20 years. Are you sure? Harking back to what Chuck just said a little bit ago. Do I need an off-road vehicle to get to my station? Will my HT do, or do I need a mobile rig and an external battery and antenna for higher power? I'm a new ham and I just got a 100-watt Baofeng UV 100 HT with a telescopic antenna. I can't wait to try it out. Why don't we just use the club's 70-centimeter repeater? I get a great signal downtown. Hey, my friends that's not a member of the club wants to help. Can you reply with the date and time again? We can't get Joe's crossband repeater to work, so we'll use 147.45 with 146.580 simplex as a backup. What's the PL tone? 143.50? Wait, I thought it was 88.5. Do you have last year's map? I can't get your drawing as an attachment. Can you resend it? What's .bmp? I have a Mac. You get the idea. Hundreds of emails, thousands of questions, everyone replying all. New people need the info again, mass confusion. New hams that volunteered are scared out of their minds and want to back out. So all events I volunteered at were mostly successful, and the radio club was always thanked for our support by the organizers. Afterwards, we always discuss what went well and what we can do better when we help out next year. I'd always reflect on how I could personally improve with my volunteering with respect to preparation, radio gear that I brought with me, and my performance of the main job at hand, communications. Some of the most common issues that I heard after that were raised were the frequencies changed last minute. We had less operators than we thought and couldn't man all stations. There was confusion around where someone's station was. There was confusion around where to go after the runners or floats passed my station. We should have accounted for the athletes that were just out riding their bikes. Because of that, we had to stay longer to make sure all the entrants were accounted for. We couldn't tell the race organizer what time we notified them of a particular emergency. I was told when I volunteered that I was supposed to be at my station at 7 a.m. And then it turned to 6 a.m. and then 5 a.m. No one told me we were going to use a crossband repeater. I didn't program that frequency in my radio, and I wasn't prepared to do so in the field when we started having issues at my location. The map we were given when we got to the parking area was confusing to look at. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it. It would have been nice to know where to park. I'm not familiar with the streets. It would have been good to have a map of all the locations beforehand so that I can offer help when everyone passed my station. Yeah, I mean, and other ones was I couldn't give the race organizer info about the other stations because cell service doesn't work up here, and I couldn't find the email. I can't remember names or call signs about the other operators. It was impossible to know locations because we use cross streets and not tactical names. This is my first time working this event. It would have been good if I knew X, Y, or Z beforehand. Oh man, I parked way further than I needed to. I had to leave my station early because I thought we were done at 2 p.m. like someone said in the email thread. It would have been better to know how we did it last year with the previous coordinator instead of going in blind this year. Chuck did it this way because he's been doing it this way for 20 years, which confused everyone else. Everyone should do the same, everyone should do X the same way, no matter their skill level with ham radio. I didn't program the repeaters using our tactical name for it, so I didn't know it was just the club's backup repeater. So you can guess the same thing is going to happen next year at this event. And when the club is asked to help out in a new event, they'll have to start from square one with the event organizer, the local municipality, regards to names, credentials, etc. So on this slide, we have me on the left-hand side. I'm helping out Mark N7CTM. He's Elmering me at an event. We are in a van. It's called QRV1. It was a 77-meter repeater. Luckily, we didn't need to use that repeater, but he threw my feet into the fire and I was net control for an athletic event for the first time, which was absolutely amazing. On the upper right, you see a very smiling Raman because I have printed documentation and that's always good because I can't bring up email. On the lower right is a POTA event that LARC put on a few months ago. And I stupidly didn't look on the website and I had to contact the people at the POTA event. Luckily, they were on the club's repeater and they were able to tell me the GPS coordinates because the POTA location was at a park that is in a canyon. And I went to that park and said canyon, and I was like, there's no way we can play radio here. Turns out the location was in a much flatter area where we could play radio. All right, so going on. What if there was a way to make the event coordination and participation process smoother for amateur radio clubs? What if you use written documentation? We could document everything from the event from year to year. Then we could have previous year's information to help start the coordination process for this year. Newbies can use previous year's docs to help them prepare for volunteering. The club could provide the municipality updated documentation when asked. The club could provide the new events organizer previous year's documentation. There would be a smoother handoffs to subsequent coordinators when they rotate out and in of that club's position. We've had that happen at LARC. There was somebody that that worked on a lot of basically coordinated a lot of the events, and now Dick is running it this year. So previous year's improvements wouldn't be lost because we'd work off a better and better process each year. We'd have insight for a new event from documentation from a previous similar event. What if Broomfield asked to do a parade? We would be like, here's our credentials from the Longmont parade. Here's what we've done before. We might even help them in some way in organizing. All volunteers would know better what's expected of each other instead of seemingly winging it. Each volunteer can print off the document and have a hard copy on site with them at the event. We can print extra copies to give to the event organizer to make reference at the event. We could be like, here's our documentation that we give to all the hams. Here's what they know. Any changes can be made in a new document with all current information that would be in that one document or packet, reducing on-site confusion. And everyone involved could critique and improve the document maps, etc. And all this would be saved instead of in a giant email thread. It would be in a packet. No joke. At an event this past year or in the past 6 months, an actual officer drove by. He stopped. He saw me holding a ham radio. I had a vest on, a safety vest. And he said, hey, can you give me Scott's number? And I was like, I wish I had an ICS packet, because I told him I was embarrassed to tell him. I was like, I don't have that information, but I can get it for you. And he was like, you know what? Never mind. And, that's when I was like, you know what? If I had all the information, I could give this officer, a man of the law, somebody with authority, unlike me, who's just running around holding a ham radio. I could help him out, and he might be like, wow, those guys are really prepared. But anywho, so standardization. Wikipedia says standardization can help maximize compatibility, interoperability, safety, repeatability, quality. It can also facilitate a normalization of formally custom processes, i.e. winging it. Why do we use Anderson power poles? Why, hopefully, are all our power poles read, write, tongue up? That's how I remember it. I don't know if that's the official way to remember it, but this is how Aries does it. So does anyone ever remember filling out a Scantron form? The little A through F dots? What about when you took your license exam with pencil and paper? Those are standardized tests. They're easy to fill out, easy to grade. What about documentation I discussed above? I bet some of you thought about having some sort of ham radio event template to put into Google Docs and share with the ham radio community. This is way easier to volunteer for multiple clubs and multiple events, because you as a volunteer would know beforehand what and where the information would be in those documents. So because of standards, you have the advantage of knowing something ahead of time, like where everyone can call and monitor while on the outdoors on VHF 14652 for, 5 to 15 minutes at the top of every hour. Sure, some standards are more standard than others, but I think we can all agree standards can be a good thing, especially when you need to know where to find information quickly. So let's look at how we can use a standard to help with event coordination and operation. So the ICS, or Incident Command System, was developed in the 1970s following some catastrophic fires in California, where they looked at case histories to determine the cause and response of some disasters. The Incident Command System has been battle tested for over 40 years by all levels of government, non-government, and the private sector. The ICS is a standardized approach to incident management that's used for all kinds of incidents by all types of organizations. ICS is applicable to small, large, and complex incidents. It can be used for emergencies as well as planned events, including simple events like a local county parade. It enables coordinated responses between government jurisdictions and agencies, or race organizers, and ham radio operators, that's you, and emergency medical services. It establishes a common process for incident level planning and resource management. It allows for integration of resources such as facilities, equipment, personnel within a common organizational structure. So ICS is a component of a larger framework called the National Incident Management System, which we won't get into here, but NIMS was established sometime after the September 11th attacks. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, they have free courses online to help better understand ICS as well as NIMS, as Pat said he was going through some of the courses earlier today. In terms of standardization, ICS establishes a common terminology that allows many organizations to work together. These documents should contain no jargon, no 10 codes like CB and the like. Obviously, for ham radio communications, we can expect the documentation to be specialized towards radio operators. So let's go over some of the features specific to a ham radio event that you would volunteer for. If you've taken even the most basic ICS course, then you'll know that I'm leaving out most of the boring stuff. That starts to matter more if you're a member of a local Aries group that's serving the local government. So an incident action plan, or IAP for short, covers a specific time frame. It assigns responsibilities. It specifies communication protocols. It ensures achievements of incident objectives. So in other words, the IAP outlines what do we want to do, who's responsible for doing it, how do we communicate each other, what happens when there's a medical emergency. All right, so one of the main things that ICS establishes is the hierarchy of who's in charge of what and who does what. Parties often involved that you might come across include the ham radio communications coordinator, a volunteer licensed ham radio operator, an ambulance service, EMTs, the event coordinator, and in the case of athletic events, public participants, or people that are pushing the floats. So there are many forms that support the Incident Action Plan, or IAP. The ICS Form 201 is the incident briefing form that can be used for an overview of, say, an athletic event. It might include maps of the course, how hams will serve, maybe other generalizations. There are other forms that say who and how many hams that we need to be on course, as well as the group we're working in tandem with. For example, are we there to report issues to the race organizer, or are we in a mountainous area without cell phone coverage so that we can relay messages to dispatch EMS, for example? You know, down in Longmont, you know, it's not a race, but a lot of times it's a parade. Are we working with the parade people, or are we working with EMS, or are we working with police, or are we, you know, working with another organization? So the 201 is the completed form that sets the stage for what and how your club is doing, is going to help. It's also the form you'd give someone if they ask for more details before they wanted to volunteer. So it's the first form that's usually generated. Then there's other supporting forms that basically have specific details that support Form 201. A favorite of HAM's is Form 205, the Incident Radio Communications Plan. Let's go over some of these now. So here's a sample list of ICS forms. There's a lot of forms, but these are some of the ICS forms that can be most useful for an event that involves ham radio operators providing communications for non-emergencies as well as emergency situations at an event. All right, look at that. We got an email from N0ZFV. I'm cheating, telnet mode. You know what? So am I. I don't have my computer connected to my radio. So thanks, Bob. ICS 201, incident briefing. So this is the overall gist of the plan, which I talked about. ICS 202 is the incident objectives. They're specific to the specifics on the plan. It sort of expands on it. ICS 204 is the assignment list. Who's coming to play ham radio for us? ICS 205 is the incident communications radio plan. This is the form hams are interested in. ICS 205A is the communications list, basically phone numbers for everybody. ICS 206 is the medical plan. What happens when somebody gets hurt? Phone numbers for EMS, etc. Believe it or not every municipality has 911. 213 is a general message, which is pretty much you can send anything. 214 is an activity log. This is really important so that you can have a timeline of, say, when an athlete got hurt and when communications happened. It might be requested for liability and insurance purposes. So it's encouraged to adapt the forms to meet your specific event's needs. And your form should indicate clearly that it's been altered to meet a specific need. It's also okay to have attachments and appendices. So all the forms should travel together as a complete packet, otherwise known as the Incident Action Plan. If you need to modify information, then it's best to send out a whole packet of forms as a PDF, for example, to ensure that everyone has the most up-to-date info and can print them off again if they want. The forms online that they have online, FEMA has all of these forms online in PDF form, and most computers are able to fill them out online and save them locally. There's also Excel and other versions of the forms, which makes them faster to fill out, as well as easier to duplicate and modify in subsequent years or events. So enough theory. So last year, long before I took any ICS courses required to join Boulder County Aries, before I'd even seen an ICS form, I was asked to participate in a whitewater race with Rocky Mountain Ham Radio, helping to provide communications. They needed an operator to help with a backup communications van. So Chuck reached out to me and said, "Hey, this looks like it's up your alley. Maybe you'll want to help out." So I agreed to participate, and I immediately got this attachment in the email. It was an incident action plan. I opened it and my jaw dropped, and I asked myself, "What did I get myself into?" So I printed out the PDF and flipped through the pages. There was so much detailed information. Forms were filled out with people's names, phone numbers, there were frequencies, maps. There was even diagrams of signals that you can give to boaters and emergency responders if they couldn't hear you across from or in a roaring river. So after my initial anxiety and sometime before I pressed the send button on that, actually, I can't make it email I composed to Willem Schroeder, my type A brain thought, wait, this is brilliant. I didn't have to send and receive a ton of emails because I accepted like 2 days before to get all the info I needed. I had it all right there, printed out. Where to drive to, where to park, phone numbers, frequencies, new names and call signs. All I had to do was bring the IAP with me and try not to drop the packet in the whitewater. We did have a few changes and a few updates to the packet of ICS forms, and they were faithfully updated and reset to the volunteer group over email. I was thankful everything was hyper standardized because I now knew what I was looking at and didn't have a panic attack when I got a new email from Willem from the event group when an attachment was received. So the night before the event, I programmed my radio and all the frequencies and tactical names show on the ICS 205, including the contingent frequencies. This made me more confident that I wouldn't have to reprogram my radio in the field, but I took my little radio manual with me anyway, just in case. So in all, I was much more confident going in because all the information was right there at my fingertips and not requiring electricity or internet access, which we wouldn't have at the race because it was in a deep canyon with absolutely no cell phone service, which is one of the reasons why we were asked to help. So let's review the ICS IAP now. And sorry about all the TLAs. So here's the cover sheet. So on the next few slides, we're going to have a sheet on the left and a sheet on the right, just to make it easier. So on the left, we have, on the left is a cover sheet. The ICS 201 on the right is the incident briefing. It provides some overall information, including when does the event start? It contains a map of important locations for the Gore race and an overall summary of what the incident is. It's a kayak race and raft. It's a kayak and raft race going through the hardest rapids with radio operators providing safety communications. It also identifies who prepared this and what their position is. In this case, this is the comms leader, which is a special title in ICS. So remember when I said that different people in an ICS organization have different roles? Each form is important to someone in the hierarchy. This form would be important to the main guy running the incident. After a period of time, the incident may be handed off to somebody else, to someone else who need this info also. So in a disaster or something that your local government might respond to in a larger incident, an incident with an I, there might be multiple operational periods. Think 9/11. Think anything on the news spanning multiple days. A hurricane, hitting Florida and South Carolina and stuff like that. People relieve each other of their duties. Somebody else takes over. They sleep. They come back, and then they have a lot of documentation to read through to see what's going on at this point in time. So those are called operational periods. For something like a race, this whitewater race, there was only one operational period, which we'll get into here in a minute. So additional pages of the ICS 201 with some more additional information, including planned times of important events during the race, as well as on the an org chart on the right saying who's responsible for what. So on the left, we have the 201, and it says, Friday, the night before, we have a briefing and safety meeting at the pump house, which is a tactical location. We use tactical locations of the names, not cross streets or next to this boulder, next to the mountain that's shaped, like this, whatever, Luckily, these some of the tactical locations called tunnel, toilet bowl, scissors rapid, they were all names of rapids. So us and the organizers use the exact same names for particular locations, which went really well. So, here you can easily see if somebody gives you this, hey, they want to have a meeting at 7:30 the night before, at 8 o'clock, if you're running the tunnel or toilet bowl, which is my favorite tactical call sign, they depart from the pump house. At 8:30, Gore and Scissors Rapid and Start, they depart from Kremling. At 1100 hours, all teams should be at their assigned locations. At noon, the race starts. At 3 o'clock, the race ends, all teams return. So you can easily see if you're going to volunteer, kind of what you're going to get yourself into. On the right-hand side, we've got an organizational chart, and it lists specific roles and titles for people running an incident. And the roles and titles, the titles are more about what the role is, not, sometimes, I don't know, if you have a job and you're working, people have titles and you're like, I don't know what you actually do. But in the ICS system, the title for somebody represents what they do. So COML is the communications leader, INCM is the incident manager, you have the safety officer, and then, across on the bottom, we have the different tactical areas of where people are going to be at. All right, so additional detail for the 201. Remember when I talked about it's okay to provide additional detail for an IAP? Well, here it is. We're talking in detail about running a whitewater race. So, we're talking about the race communications, stuff at start stop. There's non-emergency race communication, what to do, how to do it, and emergency comms. We had several events during this race. We had people missing because they took their little their shirts off that had their bib numbers, and we didn't know where they were. We didn't know if they were in the bottom of the river or not. We had boats coming through that weren't part of the race. It's a public river. Anyone can run the river. We had other times where bibs flew off, so we couldn't find the bib number. Like, we don't know where 519 is. So it was cool. It was stressful, but it was really fun to try to piece together the information to get people that got hurt help, and to communicate with the right people to get people help when they needed it. So let's see. All right, let's move on. So these are more details specific to locations, as well as the ICS 202. So on the left-hand side, we have locations in the Gore Canyon with Latin longs. You don't have to know where these places are. You can take out your GPS or your phone and figure out where they are. And then there's a little bit of information, some remarks about each place as to, what class rapids these are. Class 5 is the highest. I think class 1 or 0 is the lowest. And some information about this. Is this easy? Is this hard? This is the worst area. This is the end of the time section, and what have you. It was a timed race, basically. So on the right-hand side, we have the ICS 202, which is the incident objectives. The ICS 202 form describes the incident objectives, command, emphasis and priorities, and safety considerations for the next operational period. So for us, it was like the whole time. So the ICS 202 is usually the first page of the IAP that's given to all supervisory personnel. So if we look at this, it restates the objectives. We want to provide effective communications in support of safety teams. We are there to help out EMS. Bad stuff is going to happen. This is a race. There's lots of rapids. This is not for amateur boaters, amateur radio operators. Yes, we're there to provide situational awareness for the safety teams, and we're there to assist race organizers in conducting a safe event. One really interesting thing happened at this race. A fellow ham, I won't mention their name, they're putting on the race, and they had written a really cool software program that was able to capture times of the start and stop people. So it was timed via Raspberry Pi. Something happened to their program, something happened to their computer. So instead of us really just hanging out and just doing safety comms, we had to look for bib numbers. We had to mention start and end times to net control, me. And, they kind of used that to help them basically run the race and to decide who won and stuff like that. So we had less responsibilities, only dealing with safety, but then at the end, our responsibilities rose to actually helping timing the event. So, who knows, we may have helped somebody win that, maybe they got sponsored or something like that. I don't know. Another interesting thing about the 202 at the bottom, it says, what other forms are in this packet? Well, you should have the 202, the 204, the 205, the 205A, blah, blah, blah. If you're missing the 203, well, that's okay, because that's not supposed to be in this form. So it's telling you what you have and what you don't have, what to expect and what fell out of your out of the packet. It's on the floor of your car under the seat because you didn't use a stapler. Let's see. All right, moving on. So here we see the ICS 204, the assignment list, and our favorite, the ICS 205. So the Incident Radio Communications Plan, ICS 205, it provides information on all radio frequency or trunked radio system talk group assignments for each operational period. Let's go back to that. So 204, it lists people's names, it lists, you know, what their tactical location is and their call signs and stuff like that. At the bottom are some other frequencies. I got tripped up on Jerry N0OUW's question maybe a month ago on the Boulder, Colorado Aries group. He said, where are frequencies located on the form? And I answered, well, it can be on a 204, but they're usually on a 205. The answer is always 205. Never forget it. I'll never forget it because I kind of got the question wrong. All right, so moving on to the 205. This is what WeHam's like. It lists all the all the frequencies, what they're to be used, they're to be used for, contingency frequencies, and other cool things. You'll notice there's one row for the Union Pacific Railroad. Where we were operating, there was a live railroad. We have to keep an eye out for trains and let people know, hey, there's a train coming. Make sure you're not on the track or anywhere near the track, so they don't like shoot salt guns. I don't know if they still do that, but they did when I was a kid, at people anywhere near the train track because it's their right of way. So on the 205, we have, you know, tactical call signs, Kremling repeater. So if you guys have ever used Colorado Connection, this was the coolest thing. We took over the Kremling repeater for the Colorado Connection, and that's what we used for the race. We did have a QRV2 repeater, which was 70 centimeters, which we didn't have to employ because 2 meters actually worked better. We're in a deep canyon, maybe multipath. All the other stuff, you know, worked better on 2 meters rather than 70 centimeters. So, you know, we have other stuff like the tones for input and output, as well as phone numbers for the railroad, the BLM, and the Grant County Sheriff. All right, you know, another thing it says the operational period is from 0800 to 1800. You can show your XYL, hey babe, I'm going to be gone from this time to this time, you know, and then you can get permission to operate. Or your OM. I don't know if there's any YLs here. If there are, welcome. All right, so the IC205A provides additional details. I've whited out some personal stuff you don't need to know. We're all ham radio operators. If you really want to know people's phone numbers, you can find it. That's pretty much all I whited out, was last names and phone numbers. So this has phone numbers of how to get in touch with people, maybe before or after the race. On the right-hand side, the 206, it's the medical plan. It provides information on incident, medical aid stations, transportation services, hospitals, medical or emergency procedures, primarily for incident response resources. Notice that these forms imply that there is someone solely responsible for safety there. If I flip back a few pages, you'd notice that in the hierarchical diagram, there's somebody and her job was safety and nothing else. She was standing around with a clipboard, making sure that everybody was doing everything in a safe manner, and she had no other responsibilities except that. Very important. So here we have Grant County EMS phone number. As I said before, not every municipality has 911. We have the number for the BLM field office, Grant County Sheriff. There's a lot of information here. Isn't it great? You know, down here we have special medical emergency procedures. Start will be in cell phone contact, and start was the tactical locations. They did have cell phone contact there, and they're in, you know, they're able to contact the EMS, and you know, they'll call 911. But if anybody else is not able to call 911, we weren't, because we were in the canyon, then we're to contact start, they'll contact 911, and so on. All right, so moving on, Here we have a blank ICS 206 WF. It's the medical plan, and then the ICS 208, the safety message plan. That expands on the safety messages and site safety plan. It's an optional form that can be included and completed by the safety officer with additional info. Notice how it includes information about a railroad track and stuff about falling in the water. Stay clear of the railroad all the time. Wear your PFD, don't go in the water. If you fall in the water, this is what happened, you know, this is how you should get yourself out. It was during COVID, you know, the height of COVID. So we have some COVID stuff. On the left-hand side is largely just a blank page. You know, if you're at one of these places, at one of the tactical areas, and people are asking you information about medical stuff, you can be sure they might be trying to fill out one of these forms or get information such that they can fill out one of these forms. So that's why a copy is given to you, the volunteer. Here's another attachment from Grand County Public Health Department about COVID-19. We all know about all this stuff. We've, you know, been through this for quite a while. On the right is my favorite attachment, and the one that gave me a heart attack when I started reading it when I initially agreed to volunteer. Kayaking river signals. There's ways to give people signs and signals, whether you're in a raging river and are being, you know, kind of washed down, or standing up here trying to help the person that's in the water, or talking to EMS, or, you know, like if you can't physically talk to them. I don't know how you realize how, I don't know if you know how loud it is, you know, at a whitewater event. The river is just raging. I don't know if anyone's been to Black Canyon of the Gunnison, but once I drove into there, it was so freaking loud. And the canyon is like, what, 1,500, the river is like 1,500 feet down there. It was louder than any Grand Canyon I've ever, any part of the Grand Canyon I've ever heard. So these signals are so that, you know, like you put your hand here, or here, or here, or you point to where somebody's supposed to go rather than the hazard. So this was a really cool attachment, and I learned a little bit about kayaking and river signals, which was cool. But it also gave me a heart attack because I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. I actually have to do this and remember this stuff? Holy crap, what did I get myself into? All right, so what did you think about this IAP? Impressive, isn't it? I'd say it's pretty complete. After the event, we did talk about improvements, and you can bet those will make their way into the documentation to make next year's event even better. What do you think the race organizer thinks about the ham radio club that helped? We're prepared to communicate emergencies. What do you think a returning volunteer next year that gets an updated IAP for the parade? Easy peasy. What do you think of the newly minted technician that receives this IAP? Panic attack. What do you think the local police, ambulance service, and municipality that receives this IAP? We can read and understand what this is. We know ICS, we're the police, we're the municipality, we're, you know, we know what, we know the languages you guys are talking. So, you know, on the left, we have planning, the race organizer. They're like, this document is impressive. You guys are professional amateur radio operators. A volunteer, when they're recruiting, hey, at first I had a panic attack. Then I realized all the information is there at my fingertips. My XYL looked at the operational period and says, yeah, you can go volunteer. Fun, dude. Net control. Everyone knew what to do because we had all the information at our fingertips when we needed it. Great job, team. During the hot wash, which is basically a code word for, after the event, after action report, stuff like that. The communications leader was like, hey, the event ran successfully and we're able to manage emergencies quickly and effectively, but there's a few tweaks that we should make for next year. The race organizer comes back to us months later. Hey, remember me from last year? The club helped us run a great race. Can you guys come back again next year? We have swag, t-shirts. I know it's not all about t-shirts, but you know, it's all about professionalism here. All right, so moving on. Packet radio. So information isn't static. During the course of the event, you may need to pass traffic. In our case, stations on course pass bib numbers. And as net control, we wrote down the time of nearly every piece of traffic on an ICS 214 activity log. We received a lot of information. Voice may be okay, but sometimes it's easier and more reliable to pass it via packet radio. or internet if you're lucky enough to have it at your site. Or sometimes you can have just a local wireless IP network. You don't have to have like internet. If you have that, you can enable the Winlink Telnet client, which is what a few of us are using right now. I just got a message from N7CTM. Great presentation. Thanks. You may mention the ICS 214, but you know what? I just mentioned it. So he probably wrote this a few minutes ago, and he said he was going to send this over HF Vara rather than Telnet. We'll talk about Vara here in a minute. So thanks, Mark. Yeah, so if you have IP, which is basically like a local network, you don't have to have the rest of the internet, and you could still talk to each other. Of course, we didn't have internet due to the topography of the canyon we were in. And in addition, if you're passing a lot of traffic, it may not be feasible to tie up the main net with a lot of traffic. So examples of a lot of traffic might be rosters of people at your shelter, if you're serving in an Aries incident, the start time and bib number of the athletes that have started or passed your station, detailed instructions or directions, phone numbers. Sure, if you have enough operators, you can switch to a secondary net or perhaps simplex to pass long and large amounts of traffic. But there is a better way if you're able to do it. So how do you do it? With a radio and a laptop. Depending on the type of radio you have, you'll probably need a TNC device like a signal link. If you have a newer ICOM, then you can usually plug your radio into your computer's USB, because there's usually a built-in sound card into newer ICOMs. If you played with FT8 or FLDigi before, then your station already meets the requirement to send and receive ICS forms over the air. If you use FLDigi or WSJTX, you know there's many modes available to you. It's the same with packet radio. You can use free but slow protocols like PACTOR, or you can use fast protocols that require expensive, no, free and slow protocols in PACTOR. I meant RDOP. Or you can use fast protocols that require expensive proprietary hardware. I'm looking at you, PACTOR. There is a middle ground that N7CTM Mark mentioned, and it's called VARA. There's VARA HF and VARA for FM, which are relatively new protocols implemented in software. The cost is pretty minimal, but for the speed, reliability, and functionality, it's incredible. As long as all the stations, including the relay stations, are using VARA software on their relay machines. VARA software doesn't require specialized computer hardware, and it's been reported to run on the $60 Windows 10 laptops that are all the rage in ham radio right now. If you can get your hands on one. I recently went to Micro Center and bought 5 to give to people, to sell to people in the Netherlands in IPRC. And I've been using one here in Telnet mode to get messages from N0ZFB and N7CTM. So $60 laptop. It costs less than an unobtainium Raspberry Pi. It has a screen attached to it. It has a keyboard. And the best thing is the input to charge your battery, 12 volts. Cut the cord, attach a power pole cable, done. For 3 payments of $19.95, you can have one of these. I'm kidding. I probably sound like I'm selling whatever. Anyway, so moving on. So let's see how you can use your computer or radio and some software to send ICS forms. So ICS forms are so prevalent in Aries use that they're built right into Winlink Express, which is what I'm using right now. Sorry about the glare, which I'll refer to as Winlink for the rest of the talk. It used to be called RMS Express. The Winlink I'm talking about, is a renamed RMS Express on Windows. There's other implementations of Winlink that I'm not as familiar with. So in addition to Winlink, several common ICS forms can be passed using FLDigi and FLMSG or FLMessage. When they're used in this way, it's sometimes called NBEMS or narrowband emergency medicine messaging software, which is what I have on the right here. There's a little example of sending message using FLDigi and FLMSG. There's a good link on the Winlink site that's referenced at the end of this slide deck that contains other Winlink clients. PAT is a cross-platform one that runs on Windows. I'm not talking about PAT W0PPC. I'm talking about the software. You just looked up what. It also runs on Linux and Mac. WOAD, W-O-A-D, which is probably Winlink on Android, runs on Android, and it's looking promising as well. Beware, there's a lot of other features built into Winlink, some of which we'll go over, including the ability to get weather reports, news, and other bulletins. So it's a fun way to play ham radio, even if you have no one to talk to. Some people have also made turn-based games that you can play over Winlink, including one called Hamword. Let's look at how to fill out and send a sample ICS form using Winlink Express for Windows. I can do a video demo, but I took screenshots of me doing the same thing, just in case the demo gods are not with us. So assuming you have Winlink installed, here's what it looks like after you've used it a few times. If you use the email client in the 90s, like Eudora or Outlook, this should look very familiar to you. Winlink is a general email client, but has many more features. You can send queries via email to receive text-based responses. This is me reading the BBC headlines using a web to text service. I sent in a query, I waited a couple of minutes, they sent me back the headlines on the BBC/news page. Not that I care, but whatever, this is just an example. So the main setup menu is found here. There's tons of settings depending on what features you want to use and how advanced you want to get. For example, there's 5 down, that's GPS/position reports, Winlink catalog reports, which is basically like queries, you get back information, and a whole host of other things. There's so much in this program, it's ridiculous. So here's the main setup screen where you want to put your call sign, your Winlink password, and other information. It's important to keep the app and the forms updated for best performance. Notice I'm about to hit the update button in blue. To compose a message, just go up to message, click on new message. The new message screen pops up. Here I am sending an email to myself. You can try it if you have Winlink, send Kilo Victor 0 November an email. Notice I have the select template menu item in blue hovered with my mouse. So here are all the templates. I've expanded the ones that talk about ICS forms. You can add your own template. If your club has their own template, great. I've expanded the ICS USA forms. These should start looking familiar to you. 202, 203, 205, 205A, 206, 214. All these, are ones that we've talked about already in this talk. So this is the general form section. I've selected Winlink check-in. This one's good for checking into Winlink nets. Also, if you go to the Winlink website, you can view a map of the world of people sending in Winlink check-ins just to say, here I am, if anybody wants to know, great. It's important to realize that Winlink is not only used by us landlubbers with telnet and internet access. You could be out in the middle of the ocean with nothing but a HF radio, and you can send and receive email and send and receive a whole host of other information. You don't have to have a satellite phone, and you don't have to have the new service that Elon Musk has out with a ridiculously large antenna. You can do everything over HF radio. So when you click on the Winlink check-in, the web browser opens with pre-populated info. If I had filled this out previously, I could have hit the load check-in data button and it would populate even more stuff from the last time. This way I could just update what I wanted here. And here I am sending AC0KQ, Willem Schroeder, a note saying I'm at the repeater site. Once I'm done, I hit submit. Then this pops up telling me I can close the browser window and continue. And then you'll notice here's my message to Willem, AC0KQ. Notice how it's attached as a small text file, not some giant PDF form. It's also attached as a tab delimited file, and the subject is set as part of my message. This is all to make it send over the least amount of time, least amount of data. Now, there is an option to send a PDF if you're sending it to a regular email address, which implies the person might not load it via Winlink to see the nice form filled out like this, which is what Willem is going to see when he gets it, because I sent it to his call sign. So to put it in the send queue, you go ahead and you go ahead and do post to outbox where it says in blue. And then here's the message sitting in the outbox, ready for me to turn my radio on and hit send or start a telnet session. I send via telnet since I'm connected to the internet here at my desk. But on Monday nights when we have check-ins to VCares, I'll use RF to do it, usually VHF. So the Winlink query catalog is a bunch of info you can get back if you send a very small email to the Winlink system. It's basically a question. So here I'm looking at wave heights at the Great Lakes. You see all this stuff on the left-hand side categories. This is all weather stuff, but there's also news, all kinds of other tons of information. And so what you do is you click post request. And then here in this screenshot here, I'm about to send two emails, two different queries. One is an image and one is the wave heights in Great Lakes. I can even update the list of what I can get over ham radio. All right, so you click the menu, you select Telnet Winlink, and you hit open session up on top. And then here we go. Here's a view of the outbox. And so I'm looking at my outbox. These are messages to be sent out. And then here's the Winlink Telnet session going, saying it sent this inquiry and this inquiry. And then here's the sent items showing what I've sent in the outbox. After waiting a few minutes, I'll check Winlink it again. And here are my two queries. This one I'm looking at is, looks like it is from the Winlink system, and we're talking about wave heights in Lake Erie. Really cool, I guess. If I owned a sailboat, as they say, it's always nice to know somebody with a boat. But anyway, this query that I sent out contains an image file, and it tells you, hey, this is the image. It was a GIF. They converted to a GIF. It was really big, and it's been altered to allow processing. Here's the image file. I don't know what this is. These are wave heights, but I don't know how to read this. I'm not a sailor type person. But here's the image I requested. An image over Winlink. How cool is that? It's not just text. And it's a very sharp image that you can read, unlike SSTV, where everything is a little bit garbled, like you're tuning UHF stations back in the 80s. Pretty cool. So you can also do things like create an ICS 309 comms report. I don't know why you would, but here it is. It's probably good for certain things, liability, what have you. It says what communications my station had with other people. It's probably useful for somebody. All right, so there's some games via Winlink. There's one called Hamword, and if you played Wordle, it's basically Wordle for ham radio when you're bored. So on the Winlink, there's some information about how to play it over Winlink. There's tons of other games that you can play over Winlink. So if you're some lonely person out in the middle of the sailboat all by yourself in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you can play a game over ham radio. How awesome is that? All right, so I've just scratched the surface. Wave Talkers is a channel on YouTube. They have a ton of Winlink training videos. Really funny guys, awesome bunch of talks. They're called Wave Talkers. Check them out. They're in California. So in summary, that was a lot of material. What I propose to do is treat every event as an incident, Dick. Create an IAP and use ICS forms where possible. Disseminate documentation to all parties involved, including event organizers, municipalities, volunteers. Consider using packet radio for longer events or events that you need to pass a lot of traffic, or events spread out over a large area not amenable to an FM repeater. Using ICS can help ham radio clubs gain more volunteers more quickly to volunteer for events, because you send out the IAP, everybody knows what they're getting themselves into, and somebody might be like, oh, this is cool. I know what time to start and end, all this other stuff. I think I can do it. you, the ham radio event coordinator, will run an event more effectively with greater satisfaction because of the IAP will force you to think and plan ahead. It's more work for you, but I think it'll pay off in the long run. This will increase confidence of all those involved. If you're taking over ham radio communications for an event that has had an IAP, you're far ahead than if you started without one. Distributing the IAP can also help volunteers be more prepared with an event, with volunteering for an event. Clubs using ICS for events can help local areas or organizations recruit new members since they're already familiar with the main framework used to deal with disasters and other type of events. So taking the ICS 100, the 200, 700, it's not something brand new that they're seeing. I know one of the bottlenecks is Jerry getting the certificates of completion of people taking the IS 100, 200, 700. So there is one more thing. When I was in Cheyenne a few weekends ago, as Chuck mentioned, the president of the ARRL talked about the pillars of the ARRL. And he was talking more and more, and it's been in QST magazine, that emergency communications, they're thinking about making emergency communications one of the new pillars of ARRL. Amateur radio in the United States is a public service. If you read the documentation, part 90, part 97, all this other stuff, it's not, hey, it's a bunch of dudes playing radio. We can use GMRS, MERS, and all the other stuff for that. Ham radio is a public service. They know we're useful for something. If you read the history books, ham radio operators were useful for a lot of things in wartime and in peacetime, including advancing the art of radio. So if this talk isn't enough to convince you to use ICS for your next event, consider that emergency comms is one of the new pillars of ARRL. That's pretty much all I have. Here are some references and links to check out. Contains, you can Google FEMA ICS, my website, KV0N, ARRL has a lot of information, and obviously YouTube has a bunch of information. Longmont Amateur Radio Club, Indian Peaks Radio Clubs are two that I talked about, as well as BCares and obviously the Winlink website. So these shouldn't be anything new to you. On the right is a photo of a 5-to-1 unun that I made, slammed some pieces of paper in there to keep the ferrites off each other. This worked really well without a tuner from 7 megahertz all the way up to 28 megahertz. Anyway, that's all I got. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question or a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I think it was on the ICS 205, was it? You had the frequencies and you had N or W.
Narrow or wideband?
Ah, okay. All right. Thank you.
So yeah, definitely. One thing to remember is this isn't just ham radio frequencies or GMRS. This can be used for, a lot of municipalities have digital trunk systems. They're using DMR, P25, all the other letters. And some of those are, I don't know, I use DMR and that's narrow, for sure. So
yeah.
And
then the other thing is, do you have this in a format that we could copy and reuse?
Yeah. I can upload the slides probably to the website. And one thing that Willem told me is the IAP is public information. Once you create it, it's public information. So, I can definitely give you guys like a copy probably of the IAP with just a few things whited out. But these are literally pages of the IAP PDF that I pulled out and put in here.
Okay.
Which is great because you can kind of like, there are publications from FEMA about how to fill out an IAP, how to fill out specific forms, specific ICS forms, but it's always great to have a couple of examples of, well, I've got a blank form. What do I put in objective here? What do I put in, here and here and stuff like that. But yeah, for sure.
That'd be great.
I can make that available also. Yep. What else?
Yeah, I had a couple comments, Raman. I think one thing is, we went through a lot of forms. We don't want to make it sound like, going from the big email string to, to get an IEP. You only, depending on the event and the mission, you only need to put the forms that are needed for the event. Not all events are going to need all of the forms. Second, I mean, even for, the ham fest that we do with RM Ham, we have, we do an IAP. Actually, we do it with all of the events. And like you say, it's really good. Sometimes the packets get huge. If you are going to print it out closer to the events, because inevitably there are some changes. I find personally that I keep a copy of it on my phone, or I usually have a tablet or laptop, so I don't waste paper. But it's definitely good to read through it ahead of time. And then the last comment, there are an Excel version that's got a lot of the forms in it. I don't know if that's free, or you can find it on the internet, that has a lot of the forms that you can go through and copy things from certain pages to the other to make it easier to do, rather than open each individual document and add the information.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks.
So I've seen the absolute beauty of this in action. Most first responders and search and rescue organizations in Colorado use this. They all go through the classes. It's all standardized training. And you can walk up to the radio box or the radio table, and it doesn't matter what kind of uniform you're wearing. If it's time for a break, the guy in the sheriff's uniform can get up, and the National Guard guy can sit down. The National Guard guy can get up, and the Civil Air Patrol operator can sit down. I knew a gal in Civil Air Patrol who swore that she used ICS to plan her wedding and reception. It's but when you really, yeah, not my wife, but it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna try to find a photo. When I was in Cheyenne a few weekends ago, there was a billboard in Cheyenne, and literally it said something to the effect of, if you can plan a birthday party, you can plan for a disaster. I know they weren't necessarily talking about ICS forms, but they're trying to encourage people to prepare for whatever disasters happen up in Cheyenne. Guessing some of it revolves around snow, and some of it definitely revolves around wind, as Pat might be able to tell us.
And Raman, I put in the chat, there's a link. They're actually writable PDFs with the ICS forms. So you can fill them out right online, print them out, things like that. So the link is in the chat. And then Steve W0PPC had a question as well. He raised his hand. Okay.
Yeah, my Safari is being stupid, but if you can see my screen, I took a photo of it. I'm like, how timely is this for my talk? It basically says, if you can plan a birthday party, you can plan for a natural disaster. You have FEMA right there. So yeah, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been involved in emergency response for many, many years at some level or another, firefighting, then rescue, and more recently spill response for the big oil fields on the North Slope of Alaska. And one of the things that is very helpful and might even be more helpful in just getting a small event, or I'm not necessarily talking about emergency management assistance, but just events like races and parades and those sorts of things. ICS is great for that, but one of the great things is having SOPs, and SOPs can be a really basic outline for a scaled event. Say, for instance, you could say an event where you had no more than 8 or 10 ham radio operators that were required for communication, and 200 to 300 participants, right? And then those are scaled, and then they go all the way up to sort of interagency things, right? So like in spill response, you can imagine if we had an oil spill in the Arctic Ocean, how many agencies we'd be dealing with, depending on the size, right? So we had very detailed, There were some spills that were a tiny pinhole in the line, and maybe only 20 or 30 square feet of snow got covered with some oil, right? And that's a real easy cleanup, right? So there's an SOP for that scale. And SOPs are pretty easy to write and pretty easy to scale that way. And you can integrate that into what sort of level of ICS or ICS paperwork you'd want to develop for that event so that people weren't overwhelmed with the scalability of ICS. And that's all I've got. Oh, and the other thing was I wanted to commend this paperwork. In the very beginning, there were actual photographs of key personnel. And when you have people that are, showing up cold, when they can see a photograph of key people that they need to know their names, just 3 or 4 key folks, when they see them, they recognize them. That's great stuff. So anyway, that's all I've got.
Yeah, they had very good looking people at this event. Cool. What else? What other questions you have?
Hey, Raman. You've probably heard me complaining about my HOA and my antenna situation, so that might be the blame for most of my problems. But so I've successfully done email over the radio with Winlink, but whenever I try to use an ICS form, it just gets hung in the outbox. And somebody was telling me that some Winlink machines do not accept attachments. So they said, well, no, you have to put it in the body. Yeah, you have to put the form in the body of the email. You can't do an attachment. Have you ever run into anything like that?
I have not. I don't know if I just if my Winlink was just set up by default to do that. Here, let's look at this screenshot. Here.
It seems to me with B-Cares, I've been able to send some ICS forms to Jerry over Telnet, but it seems like every time I try to do it over the radio, it just hangs. I don't know that I've ever had any success with that.
Okay, yeah, I've only done it this way. It sends it via an attachment. I wonder if it's the node that you're calling or something like that, or I don't know. I mean, I definitely love to play with that. There's some nodes around here that I use constantly. There's one over HF that I hit in Salt Lake City. And one of the things that I do that I didn't mention is, there's Winlink Wednesdays, Winlink Thursdays, all these, people have like these quasi nets where you can just send like a Winlink position report or something else to just practice playing with Winlink and using the forms. So, love to get with you offline to get that working.
That would be wonderful.
Vermont and Bob, I can help answer a little bit of that based off of R1D1 and some experiences we had up here. From what I understand, there are some systems that will not take attachments. You got to remember, this is think of it as going to an email server, and there are ways to restrict that. Most of your forms, especially ICS, when you go to create them, it'll take you automatically to an HTML page. You fill in the information, then it'll automatically fill it into the body of your email for you. So it's part of the message. And that's how most of the traffic, that's what I've been doing for last 2-3 years. Telnet, it probably go through because it's strictly over the internet. But I have heard of some that have restrictions on that, because when you add an attachment, you're actually adding, the email is becoming larger at that point instead of being in the body. And this is just a way to keep the messages small so they can get transmitted faster and things like that, especially when it comes to ICS forms and other forms that are out there for your Winlink.
I've seen where Winlink says that there's a limit restriction on the size of the attachments, but an ICS form is measured in kbytes,
right?
And it's well beneath the threshold.
And like I said, if we understand, you can set up your Winlink server that's receiving and restrict attachments. You can do it to restrict certain things, to do certain things. Again, it's like an email server for the internet. And so it's possible it's being blocked, but it's good practice to put it in the body, because in an emergency situation, especially with Aries, you don't want to go open an attachment. That's an extra click. That's an extra couple seconds. When you need the information in the body, you get it right away. You see it, you're good to go. So it's a good practice just to make sure, you do most of the stuff in the body. Granted, yes, there's some where you can, attach with the pictures and things like that. I'm not sure, like I said, I've always had in mind of the body. I've heard of ones being restricted, but I'd have to play with that as well. But for the most part, it should work as long as you put it in the body.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we can certainly play with it and figure it out. It's probably some configuration or, the node like Chuck said. Cool. What else?
And with that, I think Raman brings up a good thing that we might try doing again. Holidays are coming up, so we'll probably wait till next year with the list of other things I got planned for the club next year. But we used to have a technical chair who loved Winlink. He would do Winlink competitions and things like that. So that's something we can do with the club internally to get people involved with it, whether it's just Telnet or if you can do, RF, however you want to do it. We used to have contests and people would get points and things like that. So maybe we can start looking at doing something like that again as well. And Don, W4FA asked you clapping or you got your hand raised, sir?
Oh, that's clapping for the presentation. That was great.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
Yeah, it was really, you know what, Ramon, one thing I like, and thank you for doing this last minute because we really didn't have a presenter for this month. So I appreciate that. Is like a lot of presenters, some are kind of dry and just kind of read whatever. I think one of the things I've been trying to do the last couple of years as a club president is make our presentations more lively, make them more energetic so that people stay on and listen.
Beer helps.
I don't have a drink in front of me, but I did earlier. Things like that, because, I want to try to get more people. Again, I know people want to come in person. We're going to work on that. Trust me. It's coming. I know I keep saying that, but it is coming. We're not going to stay Zoom forever. I promise that much. So it'll be interesting to get people in person as well. But thank you for the very, you took a topic that some people find boring and made it interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, this is just my experience. And, after working with Jerry, after working with Mark and N7CTM and, the event that you had asked me to go to, and I was like, this is great. As a type A person, I thoroughly enjoy ICS. And I do want to say something about the in-person Zoom thing. So, I was giving another Zoom talk and people weren't laughing at my jokes. And I asked my XYL, why do people laugh at my jokes in person, but not on Zoom? And she said, your jokes aren't remotely funny. I stole that from Willem.
Good job.
I was gonna say, I think I heard that last night.
Yeah, I think you heard that last night, Mark. All right.
As long as you get the same chuckle, it still works, right?
Yeah.
Same show, different crowd.
Yeah. Sweet. What else? Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks for listening to me. I'll give it back to you, Chuck.
All right.
Nicely done.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Well, like I said, I did put the link in there for the ICS forms. That is a link that lists, I think it lists all the ICS forms in a PDF format that is a editable. It sounds like you're eating it, but no, or you can edit them online and then print them out and things like that. So, take a look at that link. If you're interested in putting something together for a parade or event or whatever, or just go out and practice on them. I know most of the Aries groups have a standard 205 form for their communications, which is great to have. That's something that's easy to create, and actually maybe we should create a standard just for the club itself, for our events, things like that. The only thing we really need to come up is with a simplex frequency or something as a backup, or if we have an initial repeater as a backup, things like that. So that if we just go in and change it really quick and boom, you're done. So those things to think about that we can start doing maybe and make it easier to have it and at least build a template for the club as well.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because if I'm going to do Parade of Lights, I think I'd like to do this, and so the club has something for the next Parade of Lights.
Go for it, Don. If you need help, let me know.
10-4. Oh, wrong
Go
hobby.
10 codes, buddy. Great. A CBFMer already.
Right, right.
We hear more of that now if they're doing FM, so. Did you get my last one, Raman, in your email? Because I sent you
I
one over.
did.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I did. I just got a status radio email from Chuck.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
got your
welfare check
location.
one.
Yeah, yeah, it's got your location. Yep. Your lot and line on it. So-
And that's the cool thing about Winlink. There is a forum for just about everything.
Yeah.
And and you know, it's good practice. Just go out and occasionally go create an email and send it out. Somebody might not get it right away unless they're checking their Winlink email. But I know at least with R1D1, we were doing exercises once a week for Winlink Wednesday that were going to Thursday, things like that. And we had tactical call signs at one point. They were receiving Winlink emails. So there's all kinds of things you can do. And I think next year we'll look at maybe doing more Winlink exercises as well. I think that'd be a good fun thing to do. And the good thing is as long as you got a ham license, you can bring up Winlink. Even if you do Telnet, you can send an email or send it, an ICS form or whatever the case may be. So be a good way to play and have some fun.
Yeah.
I do have one quick note for those of you who like to look in the sky. At 6:32 tomorrow, out of the southwest, heading to the northeast, the International Space Station will be going over, and it should be pretty bright. It's going to be at 68 degrees over the horizon, over its max height. They're predicting that you should be able to see it a lot brighter than normal. So if you're interested in that, go take a look. I'm going to hopefully get outside that early in the morning and catch it going overhead. But I thought I'd relay that to those of you who like to stare at the sky and possibly even maybe get your radios out and make a contact, because their crossband repeaters running, and the Russian module is doing APRS. So if you want to send your GPS coordinates or APRS, you can do that as well. Really quick, I'll give you those frequencies. Well, I had them here just a second ago. For the crossband repeater, it's 145.990 with a PL tone of 67. Download is 437,800. And for the packet mode, packet operations, it's 145.825 up and down. So something to look forward to. Speaking of Winlink Thursday, we just got our email for R1D1 for it. Anybody got anything else they'd like to bring up?
Do we have a presenter for next month?
I believe somebody was looking for one for next month. I think Steve was looking for one. Kaiser STE, our membership share. So I think he had somebody he was trying to get a hold of. If not, why, somebody that might want to present?
I can present something else. People probably tired of hearing my voice though.
And Steve, did I answer your question? Sorry. So yeah, it starts at 6:32 in the morning. So get up early and catch it. I'm actually going to get my binoculars and hopefully get a picture and see what we can do and maybe get a nice picture if I can, but
Nice.
depends how early I get up. It might be lucky just get out and see it. We were lucky enough during last weekend. A couple of us, Bob was out there, myself, Steve, one of the Steves, was at the Jamboree on the Air for the Scouts with the WARS group, the World Amateur Radio Society. And we were able to hear people bouncing off the International Space Station for contacts, and the Scouts just loved it. We didn't make a contact ourselves, but they still heard it, and it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah,
Hey,
so
Billy.
Mark and 7CTM just sent a note over Winlink. And 10 meters is hot right now. And he says he's had luck using 10 meter HF Vara.
oh, nice.
Also on W0VG. He's got several frequencies. So
Yeah, I haven't done anything VARA HF yet. I strictly sticking with FM local with the the repeater up at, I think that's Horsetooth up there, that Incart put up, so.
I just put a link in chat for a documentary I was introduced to, all about the vulnerabilities in our power grid. So if you want anything that scares you and keeps you up at night, you can check out Grid Down, Power Up.
Great, thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you'll hate it.
All my radios are charged and ready to go, and I got my battery pack ready to go, my solar panel, so. See what happens next. All right, does anybody else have anything in general they want to bring up? Any other questions for the club? Comments, suggestions? Remember to pay your dues, please. When you get the email from Steve, appreciate that. If for some reason you can't get into the database, contact myself. I will get you going. I think I got it pretty much nailed down where it's actually running somewhat well. And remember, as a club member, you can post articles up there as well. So you can do what's called posts and put something up. So please log in and something interesting, post it. We'll review it and get it up on the front page for you. And the reason the pictures have been updated at the top is Raman has taken on that responsibility and keeping our flip photos at the very top fresh and updated. So good job and thank you for taking that on.
Yeah, always a good job there with the pictures and the videos.
Yeah, looks great, Raman. Thank you.
With that also, if you'd like to volunteer for something to help the club, remember it's your club, not mine, not the board's. Please let me know and see what you can do to help out and go from there because we always got fun things to do.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, as usual, I took my video camera with me and I did a little video of the Hamfest ARRL convention up there. On the way, I did a POTA, and while I was there, I did about 3 POTA activations. Super fun. There's a video on the website. Check it out if you're so inclined.
And speaking
remember
of
breakfast Saturday morning.
Yep, breakfast Saturday morning. Don't forget that. And keep in mind, January, I believe it's the second weekend or third weekend in January is the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club's Hamfest. So if you got stuff you want to try to sell in the table, I think as a club, we're going to probably have at least a table or 2 as well, probably promoting the club and potentially I still have some estate sale stuff from Paul and Nancy estate. So we still got some of that stuff as well. But as a club, because we helped them take all their antennas and stuff down to date, we've raised a little over $7,000 for the family with equipment we sold. So good job, club, and things like that. So that's something to be proud of, that we were able to help a family out. And for those of you who haven't heard, I don't know if I remember sending it out or not, September 22nd, Nancy passed away. So both the Patricks are now both silent keys. But I'm still working with the family to help them with the stuff that I have left. All right, roundtable, anybody, questions, comments? All right, keep up the good work, everybody. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great evening and a great weekend, and look forward to the Parade of Lights at the end of the month and the Turkey Trot in November. And maybe we might even sneak something else in there if we can, and I'll let you know about that.
Happy trails.
Yep.
Happy
Happy 3, everyone. Have